Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Okay, you said it before just now. What's a puppy button? Puppy button you want to talk about?
Puppy buttons. I'll tell you.
What is it?
So they're these. It's a way to teach your dog to talk, like using words.
Oh, yes, yes. I've seen that. Like the collie. I saw Border Collie using that, right?
Yes, yes.
And do you do that with your dogs? What kind
I
of dogs
just
do you have?
started teaching them.
How old's your dog?
So I have two. They're sisters, but they're from different litters. They're Pomeranian Chihuahua crosses. The first one that we got was a rescue, and then they rescued the second litter, and so we got another one. So the older one's about to be 8 years old, so you can teach an old dog new tricks, and the younger one is 6 months younger, so she's about 7.5. But we are having so much fun with the puppy buttons.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to check that out because I have a Jack Russell who's 14, stubborn as all get out, but he's smart. And I've got a pity mix where she's a little bit like chiller, but I think she's smarter because she kind of anticipates things. Whereas my Jack Russell is like, if you're going to throw the ball, you're throwing it in that direction, and that's the direction I'm running in. So it's really kind of a funny thing there. But I'm going to check that out. Puppy buttons.
The best place to check it out to get started is on YouTube. There's a channel called What About Bunny? And this is actually part of a university study. So she's got cameras on her all the time. And she uses a setup called Fluent Pet, which is based on, I don't know, some kind of dimensions, and they're organized a certain way. But this dog can form sentences
Oh, wow. That's way cool.
to tell you what you want. And it's not accidental. You can definitely tell. She knows what she's telling you.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, you know what? Maybe if your puppies can hear this recording and they'll know that the mic is listening, and then maybe we'll kick off the show. Are you ready for it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do this. We'll break you in, Casey.
The mic is listening.
The mic is listening.
The mic is listening.
The mic is
The
listening.
mic is listening.
The mic is listening.
listening.
The mic is 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 listening.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to The Mic is Listening. I am Sia. I don't know why I keep saying my name, but anyway, I think that's going to be my proper intro from here on out. But want to talk about a very excited guest that I've just been begging to have join us for the last 2 years since I've met her. And we will talk to Casey Hasten shortly. But I want to talk about something in my little brand. It's a revisit. Last week, I talked about perfection and imperfection. It's a theme, I think, for the rest of the month of January and the rest of 2022 is I'm discovering so much more grace that I'm giving myself in a lot of the things that I do. I know that I'm fallible, though we all try to be infallible at times. And I think to some degree that's prohibiting folks to take that next leap, that next step in their life. And so I'm here to reiterate, you guys, there is beauty, there's perfection in imperfection. So I strongly encourage you, for those that maybe created content in the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, reconsider looking at the content that you've created and repurpose it. So we are busy. Everyone's running on full cylinders. And I've been talking to a lot of clients lately that say, you know what? I don't know. I just have time to record new content. Is there a possibility that I can just record or use what I already did in a different way? And the answer is a resounding yes. There are some folks that maybe didn't have the best video quality, but their audio sounded great. Maybe we could re-swizzle it in a different way. I've heard this stat before, and I'll say it again because it's true, at least for me. Back in the day, if you gave a presentation, you had to say something 3 times in order for your audience to remember or just remember that point. Now, because of social media, because of the people like us right here, like me doing this, it's 17 times you have to hear a point before something can really register. And oftentimes, I say this every time, find an emotional connection to the point you're making, and it's going to, capture your little tendrils to help your audience remember a little bit better and connect with you better. So again, just reiteration, there's perfection and imperfection. If things aren't perfect, if the stuff that you created isn't the best thing that you love, but the content is good, I highly suggest you repurpose it. It doesn't take a whole ton of extra work. It does, however, take a little patience to kind of revisit what you like, but that's it. And then you've recorded it. You can put it in blogs. You can put it into social media. You can make a TikTok version of it if you want to, for those that are really ambitious and cool. So that's my few minutes of rant there. And if you have any questions, obviously hit me up. So today I want to welcome a very, very cool guest. Her name is Ms. Casey Hasten. Casey, welcome.
Hello. I am so excited to be here with you today. And I love your message. That was for me. That repurpose your content. That was absolutely for me today. So thank you.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. And you, girl, have a lot of content. I mean, you are the premier, at least that I see here. Maybe I'm slightly biased. You are the consummate host of We Are VIP podcast. And I just love just you do podcasting right. You do podcasting in a way that reflects your personality, your interests, but also you highlight your guests in such a way that is welcoming. And I see a lot of the guests relaxed. So, Casey, I just got to ask, was that something that you developed, or is that something that's always been in you? Why are you so damn cool is my question.
Because of people like you keep telling me I'm cool and I start to believe it. I don't know. No, I think it's just, I have a genuine love for people. And that was the whole reason I started that podcast because, I love to network. I love to make new friends. I tell everybody as soon as I meet them, you're my new friend. You're my new best friend, and but I love to hear their stories and I love to listen to them. And I think that's probably key is listening to them, but then interacting because you listen to them, asking those follow-up questions. And, when I started thinking about the podcast, it was simply because I had met so many cool people. And I was like, it's just not fair that more people don't get to meet these people. They don't get to hear their message. And so I wanted to be an avenue and channel to help, even though these people are getting their message out, I wanted to be an additional resource to them to help them get their message out. And they're helping my audience as well, because, our audience, this is our company podcast and we are recruiters. And so we want to help those job seekers find that next best job, to help them find their passion, help them make a pivot if they're not in the right role. I was not in the right role for 20 years. So, and then we also want to help companies create better cultures so they can keep that good talent, right?
Oh, yes.
I have a guest coming on pretty soon. They just wrote a book called Love as a Business Strategy. Oh yeah, that's going to be powerful.
Oh, you know what? I think there's so much more love that's needed. It reminds me of the Beatles, all we need is love. But there's some truth to that. I know it sounds hippy dippy, but if we could take empathy and really apply it to our workplace, to our personal lives, I think we as a society will go so much further. Now, granted, I'm not going deep. I'm not deep, so I'm not going too deep on that. But I do strongly believe we've entered such a really interesting time with this whole pandemic.
Mhm.
I think it's reset us as a humanity on Earth to really reevaluate what it is that's important to us. I mean, so I have to ask you on this then, from a recruiting perspective, we hear about that whole great, resignation, and we hear folks, there was already rumblings of the whole gig economy long before this. But what are you seeing? And I guess, what are you seeing? Is it true or is it hype?
No, it's absolutely true. In fact, over the last few months, just the numbers of people that are quitting their jobs is staggering. Okay. And these numbers are a combination of those that are permanently exiting the workforce and those that are finding new jobs or just quitting their jobs because they're not putting up with the toxic environment anymore. I've talked to a lot of people who have done that. They're not scared to do it anymore. Right. Before, I would always tell my candidates, don't quit a job without having a job.
Right.
Now people don't care.
Yeah.
They really don't care. They are not. And you're right. During this pandemic, people have done a lot of reflecting. I think a large part of that great resignation is because, and we're seeing women like 4-to-1 exiting the workforce. Okay. They're talking about the setback, what it's doing to that gender equality in the workforce now, because the women are taking a step back. There was a recent survey that was done. I can't remember who did the survey, but they found that when they questioned these women, 1 out of 4 women, 25%, were talking about taking a step back so they would have better quality of life, or completely exiting the workforce.
Oh my gosh.
That's horrible. That's totally going in the wrong direction.
Okay. So and I didn't even think about the gender at all, the gender equation, but Okay, so this is more anecdotal question. Is it because of the pandemic, everyone's been home, that do women just have that stronger tug and pull to be like, "You know what? I need to spend more time with my family." Is that what's do you think that's kinda driving it, or just simply, "I'm not putting up with BS," and women have a lower tolerance for BS?
I think it's both, and it's not just women on the BS, okay? This is
Yeah,
gender neutral on that one. But when it comes to the women, I mean, who's typically the caregiver?
females.
You know, when the kids are
Yeah.
home from school during the pandemic and they're having to be taught, who's primarily responsible for that? I'm not saying the dads aren't stepping out, but primarily it is the mom. It was the moms, right?
Yeah.
And because they're having to be teacher, mom, caregiver, sometimes to older, family members or other family members, they they were burning out at an incredible rate.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us during this time woke up and said, "You know what? It's not about working for the man to put more money in his pocket. It's about filling my bucket,
Yeah.
about making me whole." So I think that's really what we're seeing and why we're seeing a greater number of women exiting the workforce.
Oh my gosh. It it resonates so true, and I can't tell you how many times, I've been in part of so many women's business organizations. You got extraordinarily competent, very capable
Mhm.
women that do have that tug, and I can see what you're saying, which is, look, if you have to reprioritize, the company doesn't owe you anything and clearly tells you that they don't owe you anything. There's no allegiance. There's
Yep.
no there's that the mentality of working for a company for 20 plus years till retirement or 30 years, whatever, has gone through the wayside.
Mm-mm.
Let me ask you this, because that mentality was very prevalent in the boomer and silent generation, right? I'm a big
Mhm.
generational person. I know everyone keeps saying that, but I think there's some truth, because I think there's some cyclicalness of, is that even a word? Cyclicalness,
It is now.
cyclicality, what word would that be?
I don't know.
Cycle, cyclical.
Cyclical, I think is what
It's
you're looking for.
cyclical, okay?
Yeah.
Um, damn it, I'm gonna start my own vocabulary. Um, hey, if you understand me, isn't that still communication?
You know what?
Okay,
I put that in an email the other day, just a side note, because I made up a word and I was like, "Yes, I know it's not a real word. Go with it." You know what I'm saying?
you unders me. That's what I tell my friends. You unders me. What more do you want? Okay, so let's not digress too much. But yeah, no, okay, so cyclical, it's
Mhm.
cyclical. Maybe I should just use a different word, but uh
Comes in waves.
it comes in waves, because I think humans are naturally behave consistently, right? And that's why there's that saying is, if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat yourself, right?
Mhm.
I'm sensing, and you said it right there earlier, you mentioned it, is some folks are exiting the workforce, period. Do you think this is just the timing where the boomers are finally saying, oh, you know what, I'm going to retire now? And you know what, the pandemic is kind of accelerating that moment of time, but we knew this was coming. This shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone that the boomers, they weren't retiring fast enough. I remember reading about this like 5, 6 years ago, and the reason why, like, the Gen Xers are like, and that is us, the coolest generation ever, uh,
Absolutely.
we're not necessarily in executive management roles. Sure, there certainly are, but they weren't as much because the boomers were occupying so many of these executive, super
Mhm.
executive leadership positions, the C-suite, et cetera. And there was a big complaint where the millennials are trying to move up in time, right? The oldest millennials are pushing 40, which, by the way, very sad. Well, very sad. I'm like, "Wait, how old are they now? Like 40? Wait, no."
I have a millennial, so yes, and I'm not gonna tell you how old he's about to be.
Yeah, no, and then when I hear that, when you think about Gen Z and now the Gen Alphas, I'm like, "Oh my god, like, stop, just stop with all this." But I think it's true. Boomers, are they do you think they were gonna retire anyway, or do you think this pandemic has accelerated, thus creating this great resignation?
I think that that is a part of it. I don't think that that's the biggest part of it. So,
Okay.
yes, we are seeing people cite early retirement as a reason for exiting the workforce. But we're seeing so many other reasons too for why they're exiting. Some of them are saying, I'm scared to go to work. Some of them are saying,
Mm,
like you said, reprioritized and we've decided we can make it on one income and then have
yeah,
that better quality of life at home, and kind of going back to that, one income household where the kids are getting more attention, whether that's the father or the mother, but there's so many different factors that are playing into this. I wouldn't say that early retirement's the driving force at all.
well, you know early retirement, what an elusive concept, right? But I do think, I think financially, I think they say that us generationally have fared better in saving our money. So I think this pandemic has been very good for those that were
Mhm.
saving for a rainy day. Um, and of course, my prepper friends, they're like thrilled because they're like, "Yay, we get to use our dried goods that we've been storing up for the last 20 years." I'm kidding, no. So okay,
Hey, don't knock on preppers because
girl, I live with one. So let me tell you that that ice storm in December or January of
you were
last
very
year or
grateful,
whatever.
weren't you?
We were coasting. We were like all
Yep.
good. And then of course when you date an introvert, like the pandemic was like I didn't realize I could be an introvert as well. I don't know, maybe it might be called laziness if you're an extrovert that was completely content like isolating, but yeah, no. Okay, so let me ask you this because, you know, Casey, you're such an amazing person and you've always been willing to give. And I love that about you. And I guess my question is like when you think about your tagline, right? And I by the way, the theme song, I know you're laughing at me, but this is how we do it. I used to be a recruiter back in the day, and there's like that exhilaration of like, oh yeah, I placed someone.
Yeah.
But you're taking a step further. You're like changing their lives by giving them jobs that they actually love, like enjoy, can career and go grow in their career. How did you come about that? Like, when I was a recruiter, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's during the dot-com days, I was selfish. I'm like, "Money, I made some money.
Put the
How
butt
come
in the
you?"
seat.
Yeah, yeah. "Woo, I'm rich." No, but how is it that you actually came about saying, "No, I'm actually doing it for a bigger purpose?"
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like to make money too, but at the end of the day, it's not my intent to make somebody hate their life. And I've seen so many recruiters do that, not even care about, whether that person was going to be happy in that role. So I even go even a step further because one of the things I do is I want and let me step back here. The reason I do this is because I was in a career I did not love for 20 years and nobody told me that it was okay to go look for something else.
Mm.
And when I found my passion and I realized how fulfilling life could be, I don't work a day in my life because I love so much what I do. I love talking to you. I love doing the podcast. I love helping people find jobs. I love coaching. I love all of this stuff. And, when you know me, I'm an extremist. When I'm passionate about something, I'm like
Woo.
200% in. There's no filter on me, no breaks, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to helping people find a new job, when they engage with me, I don't talk to them at a surface level, like, here's your resume. How much do you want to make? Where do you want to work? I want to dig deep and I want to find out what's going to make you happy to get up and go to work tomorrow. And if it's not accounting, let's figure out what it is. If it's not finance, let's figure out what it is. I'm okay with that. And a lot of people are like, but you're taking money away from yourself. I don't care. My number one internal rule is give value first.
Mm.
And I believe, when I teach people how to recruit and stuff like that, I teach them give value first, the money will follow.
I love that because it's rare. Because I think what
Mhm.
you're really saying is don't think about yourself, right? This is not about you. This
Right.
job of recruiting is really not about the recruiter. This is really enabling whomever and helping them to get to their next stuff. And there's some truth to this. And as a recruiter, you're kind of hoping you're placing someone that is happy and content
Mhm.
and will live there in that place forever. But the reality of it is they're going to probably be looking in the future at some point for whatever reason. Their life changes, their interest changes, whatever. You want them to come back to you too, right? You want
Absolutely.
them to or refer their friends to say, "Hey,
Yes.
Casey hooked me up."
Can I tell you a quick story about that? So,
Yeah.
and I think this is just the epitome of how much I love my candidates. Okay. So, when I first started recruiting, I engaged with a candidate back in 2013. So, like I said, this is not my first career, right? But I've been doing it almost 10 years now. So, in 2013, she had been with her company for like 6 years, right? And I was like, oh my God, I got a good one. She's not a job hopper, but she ended up finding a role on her own. Well, for the next 7 years, I called her 2 or 3 times a year. Most of the time she didn't answer or call me back, but she knew that I was still thinking about her, right?
Mhm.
And occasionally we would talk, and it was so funny because her voicemail was the same from 2013 to 2020, and it was her daughter from when she was, like, 6. It was so cute, but her daughter's, like,
Oh.
grown now. Not really. But so anyway, so in 2020, 2 weeks before the world broke, I get a phone call from this girl. She's bawling her eyes out. And I'm like, okay, take a breath. What's going on? And she goes, I just quit my job without notice. And she'd been there since 2013.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, all right. And she's not irrational. This obviously she's very loyal and she stays with companies. I was like, what happened? She told me what happened. And I was like, you know what? I can work with this, And I actually had a position that I was working on at the time that she was a perfect fit for. But whenever somebody quits their job without notice, it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth. Right. And so you need somebody to be your champion, to be able
Right.
to tell your story when you're engaging. That's the beauty of having a recruiter. We get to be your champion. We get to be that interface. Okay. And we get to tell you what not to say or how to say it, But I presented her to my client. They loved her. She ended up getting a $20,000 raise. I explained to them the situation and they were like, yeah, hire her. She was in the office 1 week and the world broke down and she's been remote ever since.
Oh my
But
gosh.
that's the kind of relationship I like to develop. It took me 7 years to make money off of her. But
Yes.
and I don't really care that I made money off of her. What I care about is that I was there when she needed me.
And oh my goodness gracious, you're going to make me cry because I do think recruiting does get a bad reputation at times. I
Yeah.
mean, there are some folks in your industry, and like I said, I worked it early on back in the day that were just shady,
ruthless.
shady. And it's sad to me because it doesn't need to be that way. You don't need to look at people as dollar bills, dollar bills,
Oh, I hate that.
and so, okay, if I were a job seeker and so Casey, what industries do you specifically focus on for
So
clarity?
my main wheelhouse is accounting, finance, audit, and tax. Those are all very much interrelated. Uh, we do have a few one-offs that we'll work on. So we've worked on HR, marketing. I've done some COOs. I've got a VP of business development I'm working on, which I'd love to share with people right now. It's actually an SVP. So it's mainly accounting and finance, but I don't want anybody not to reach out to me if they're not in those disciplines because I'm in the business of you never know. And you never know what's going to come across my desk.
Right. Well, then also the industry, we all talk to each other too, right? So
Exactly.
and I was just thinking, I want to introduce you to my buddy because he when I worked with him, we worked at a recruiting agency together and then he started his own business. But he focuses predominantly on tech and executives. And I don't know, I just feel like you guys should introduce each other just because you can fill out
we can refer candidates.
Corporate environment. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I know. I think that, and I think that is the whole thing about podcasting too, in general, right? Having another podcast host on the shows is you kind of cross pollinate each other's environments. And I don't know, it's almost like very subtly, you're introducing to each other, not just you, but your community.
Absolutely.
And communities. With
Absolutely.
one another. Okay, what was one of the most favorite episodes that you've ever done interview on We Are VIP? That I don't know. I know it's been a few sleep cycles, but is there any that stand out to you that just cracks you up or makes you want to cry, or just what standout moment?
I think probably, and there's several, okay, but probably the one that when I heard this guest was coming on, I literally fell to my knees because it was one that we talk about. Pardon me, allergies. We talk about all the time on the podcast. We talk about because his book, I credit with changing my life and getting me in gear, getting me to where I am today. And that book is called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And, and we talk about it and it's all about setting your day up for success. In fact, that's one of our VIP questions. What's one thing you do each morning to set your day up for success? And that stemmed from reading that book. And I finally had Hal Elrod on the podcast. Yeah. International best-selling author came on our podcast. We've had several actually, but he was the one that I was just like, oh my God, I don't believe this is happening. I don't believe I get to talk to him. This doesn't happen in real life. Right.
Right.
So that was probably the one. And I highly recommend that people listen to that. It's episode 85. And the reason I recommend it is because he goes into great detail about how to create affirmations, not just I am wealthy. No, you're not. That doesn't work. He gives you a really good structure for creating affirmations that will help change your life. And I firmly believe in affirmations.
Oh, I'll definitely put that in the show notes for sure. Thanks for the recommendation. And speaking of, affirmation and, really kind of putting pen to paper with your thoughts
Mm.
and, kind of making things happen. Let's talk about this little project here, Awaken Your Potential. And this is a journal that you are about to release. And
Correct.
I wanted to highlight this quote here. So a year from now, you will wish you started today. So talk to me. Why is that your favorite quote?
It's kind of like planting that tree, right? So it reminds me not to put something off just because I think I'm not ready to do it. So starting a podcast, I tell everybody I fly by the seat of my pants, but really it's because of this quote. I don't worry about, the details. I know the details will fill themselves in. I'm that big picture thinker, right?
Mhm.
But that's why this is my favorite quote, because it reminds us that, start now. It's just like when I started my personal branding, okay, in 2019. If I hadn't started that when I did, I wouldn't be ready for this journal launch coming up. That just kind of paved the way for this to happen. So if I hadn't done that, I'd have been wishing that I had 2 years later
Yeah.
or a year later. So that's why that's my favorite quote.
It just reminded me of another quote that I'd read. Or look, people, as you know, I can't get idioms right, so don't even think about getting any like quote right. But I am reminded of. So wait, let me say it one more time. Everyone, check out Awaken Your Potential. I think that's going to be like such a very helpful, just feel good. It just seems like it'll be an inspiration and a gentle, not so gentle reminder at times for us. So Casey, I'm really looking forward to reading it.
Well, and real quick, if I can just tell you, holistically, this journal is everything I wanted. Okay. I'm a journal junkie. I was carrying around 4 or 5 different journals, and I went out. I was like, there's got to be something that's all inclusive. There wasn't.
Mm.
There absolutely wasn't. So there's 6 different sections to this: mindset, affirmations, efficiency. So that's your habit stacking. So you can get more done. Read Atomic Habits. It's amazing. Goal setting, huge. You've got to write down your goals, right?
Yeah.
And I give you a very clear format on how to do this and make it really easy for you. Productivity. Okay. This is the bulk of the journal. There's 404 pages in this quarterly journal.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
But it's guided. So the most of it's the daily pages, right? But then it's got your weekly review, your weekly overview for the next week. But the daily pages are where the magic happens, because it ties everything together
Together. Yeah.
and ties it back. And so the last section is finance. And then underlying, not completely called out, is health, because at the end of each week, I give you an opportunity to meal plan and give you a grocery list broken down by sections that you can tear out and take with you.
Oh my gosh, Casey, I cannot wait. There are some folks I know who might be able to use some of that. So let me know. No, that's so. It is funny. When I was younger, I didn't think these types of things were helpful. I think when you're in
Mhm.
your youth, I think there's just a certain, like, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to carve my own path. I'm going to do it my own way. Don't tell me what to do. I'm an
Yeah.
adult now. Right. And at some point, I think in your life, you realize, look, the way I was going about it probably wasn't the most efficient, or maybe I'm just kind of lollygagging, or like you say, if you don't have a goal, anywhere
Mhm.
will get you there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I think we do meander. I know for a fact I meander way too much. So I was gonna say a quote about the, if you don't start, but okay, wait, what was the quote again? I always get this messed up here. Wait, so
I'll butcher
a
it if I
year
say it.
from now, you will wish you started today. Okay. Wanted to reiterate this thought was there was a gentleman that said something to the effect of like, you know what? Uh, he was talking about college graduating or getting his MBA, one of the two degrees. And he said, I was thinking about getting my degree at 40 years old and thinking, oh, I'm 40 years old trying to get my degree. Well, in 4 or 5 years from now, whatever it takes you to get your degree, whatever degree it is you're going for, you're going to have it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you never started, you would just be the same person that you were from the beginning, right? You haven't changed or evolved or acquired it. I'm so slaughtering this quote. It
It's
is not
fine.
even funny.
Something else I want to tell you, there are over 120 different quotes in this journal. Every single
Oh,
day has a different quote. And I can't tell you the number of people, because we're beta testing it right now, that have come in. They're like, that quote was so timely. It's almost like a horoscope. Somehow it fits.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, something tells me you probably were thinking of me and didn't really know it. Just saying.
With that last quote.
Just saying. Just saying. But I do like that because, again, as podcasters, what was it that finally just said, "I'm gonna get off my you know what, and I'm gonna launch a podcast"? What took you over that edge?
Um, I launched my personal brand, and it made sense to follow that up with a podcast at that time, and it helped that I decided I was gonna do it, and I'm one of those people, like, you gotta speak it out in the universe, right? And then people make
Right.
it happen. So I'll tell you an example of that here in just a second, but I went to my partners here at VIP, and I asked them I told them, I said, "Look, I'm gonna start a podcast, and I just wanted you to know, because I know I'm a reflection on you. I promise I won't embarrass you, but I'm gonna start a podcast." And they're like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Do it for us." And I was like, "Okay." And then it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was on.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, Casey, I know we can talk forever, and as always, I always run long. So don't want to like shorten our opportunity here. For those that want to get a hold of you, go on to get to know you outside of your website down there. How else can those get to know you a little bit better?
So, probably the best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got a very strong presence there. I'm constantly posting stuff, or not as often as I should. I'm going to start repurposing. Thank you, Sia.
You're welcome.
But LinkedIn is definitely where I live most of the time. You can also reach out to me at hello@caseyhasten.com. And one last thing, I want to really recommend or encourage people, there is a free assessment on my website. Okay. And this is an amazing assessment. I'm happy to debrief with you over it after you take it, but it tells you how you're wired at the core internally. So it's going to tell you what you love. Like, had I taken this assessment before I went into accounting, I would have never gone into accounting.
Oh my gosh.
I wish I had taken this then and not
Yeah,
wasted 20 years.
I seriously think you in accounting. Actually, you know what? You might have livened up the space in accounting. So maybe you did a good deed, and you might have been suffering personally, but I think you did a good deed for everybody else.
Maybe.
You entertained them.
There you go.
Well, no. So, Casey, thank you so very much for joining. And I know it's taken forever for us to get together on this, but I love you like a love song. You're awesome. You're a rock star. Everyone, please check out Casey Hasten. And of course, check out her book, Awaken Your Potential. It's a great journal. I'm already like sold on it. Everything that you've checked off, I'm like, ooh, yeah, I get it. I get it. So, Casey, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And for those that are interested in learning more about wearevip.com, don't forget to check out the podcast. That's what it's all about, you guys. The mic is listening. So, on that note, make sure you hit it up, like, subscribe, and comment and share. And I mean, if you want to like send money our way, none of us will ever say no to you. On that note, guys, I think that wraps up for another episode of The Mic is Listening. Bye.